Welcome to Khetz Tutorials, and in this video, I'll be doing question 69 from D exercises in James Stewart Calculus. So asked to solve for x, and the x values which we give as our answers should be between 0 and 2 pi included. So whenever you're restricted like this, you should give actual angles instead of general solutions. Well, we use general solutions to then find the angles. And you do that by substituting integers in place of n or k or any letter that you use in the general solution. So let's see how we can do that. So we have an identity here, and we can convert this into its other form. So sine, this is a double angle identity of sine, which is 2 sine cosine. Then we're going to equate it to what we have already, or you can just quickly move this to the left. And if you move it to the left, you can now factor out a common factor, which is cosine in this case. So the highest common factor is cosine. That would leave you with 2 sine here, then just 1 here. Now you can solve. The solution would be cosine equals 0, or 2 sine x minus 1 equals 0. On this side, we can just proceed with our general formula solution. On this side, let's do some math quickly. And that leaves us with sine x equals 2 1/2. Then from here, we can work on the general solution as well. Then find the answers between these numbers or those angles. So let's start with this side, the left-hand side. So on the left-hand side, you're going to find a reference angle. So these are the steps that you follow when you find the general solution. You're going to find the reference angle using the positive form of whatever this number is. Then you're going to look at the sign of the number and figure out where it is on the cast diagram. Then use the values which border each of those sections of the cast diagram to decide your general solutions. Then add the period of the function which you're dealing with. So let's put all of that together. The reference angle is found by finding the arc trig value or trig function of whatever you have. In our case, we're going to find the arc cosine of 0. And that is our reference angle. So our reference angle will be pi over 2. So if you calculate arc cosine of 0, you're going to get pi over 2. Then we're going to use this in our general formula, considering the sign of this. So this is 0, so it's there, right? And if we're to describe where that is, or we can take it as a positive value, it can be 0 plus cosine is, so we look at the portions where cosine has the same sign as the number which is there. So if this was negative, we'd look at the portions where cosine is negative. Now we're taking it as a positive or neutral, and we're going to look at the parts where cosine is positive. Cosine is positive here, where all of them are positive, as well as here. And to give your answer, you're going to describe these positions. To describe the two parts where cosine is positive, that would be this border value, plus or minus. So plus would be this way, minus would be that way. Your reference angle. Then you're going to add the period multiplied by n, and n is an integer. And these are the solutions for cosine. Now, this leads you to pi over 2 plus or minus pi over 2 plus 2 pi n. N is an integer. But we're not done, because we're asked to specifically give x values between that. So we're going to try a bunch of integers. If you try an integer of 0 here and taking the positive one, then one of your answers would be x equals pi over 2. And if you change this to a 1, then you have, and use the -1, then you have 2 pi minus pi over 2, which would be 3 pi over 2. And you can try any other combination, whether you're going to have the negative and any integer substituted in there. You'd see that since we have this restriction, you can't really do a lot there. You can either put a 0 or a 1, and that's just about it. And you can't put a 0 with the -1 because the negative pi over 2 is not in here, so you can't even give that as an answer. So as far as this is concerned, these are the only answers which you can give for this particular question. Now that we're done with that section, we can move on to this side. On this side, once again, we're going to find the reference angle. And the reference angle is found by the arc sine of a half. So even if this was -1/2, you'd use the positive version of it to find the reference angle, then decide based on its sign. So if it was negative, you'd pick the portions where sign is negative. But now it's positive, so you're going to pick the portions where sign is positive. Those are described by pi minus and 0 plus. That's what we're going to use in our general formula. So x would be pi minus, which is one of the positive sections, then our reference angle, so arc sine of a half, is pi over 6. And we're going to add the period, which is 2 pi. So the period of sine is 2 pi as well. And n is an integer. Then the other section where it is positive, that's where we have 0 plus. And this would give you x equals 0 plus the same reference angle. So use the same reference angle in both cases and use the first part of your general formula to describe the sign of this number that's on the other side of the equal sign. Okay, then we're going to add the period again. That's what we finally have. So in the end, our two solutions are x equals, so this one would now be 5 pi over 6 plus 2 pi n is an integer, and this one will just be pi over 6. So these are two solutions which you can substitute integers into to find the answers between 0 and 2 pi. So starting with this one, let's see what we can substitute over there. So if you substitute a 0, then one of the x values is pi over 6. If you substitute a 1, it's already outside the 0 to 2 pi limit. If you substitute a -1, it's also outside, and any other number is outside. And with this one, the same applies. We can only substitute a 0. If you substitute a 0 there, we just have 5 pi over 6. So in the end, these are all the answers that we can give for x. And you'd give all of them to answer the question. You have to make sure that your answers are within the given range. And if they don't give a range, then you just give the general solutions, because any number can be substituted in there. That would ultimately solve these kind of equations.